Here we have an example of a simple Java program. And what we've done is we've run code scanning over this, and inside code scanning, it's identified that there are three security issues with my application. The one that looks most interesting is this query depends on a user-provided value. If we have a look at this and look at the explanation, it's talking about a SQL injection type vulnerability. Interesting. If I look at the analysis steps in here, I can see the path, so the flow from the user input all the way through my program into the select call and so on. Okay. Now, it looks like this is the area of code where there's a problem, but I don't fully understand what a SQL injection is. So I'm going to go and bring up conversational Copilot, and I'm going to ask it to help me understand what exactly is going on here so I can come up with a better solution. So first of all, let's ask it, it looks like my code has some security issues. Can you help me understand what those issues are? So if you run this here, what you can see is that it says, hey, it looks like your code has a SQL injection. It's giving me some hints around how to prevent SQL injections by using parameterization instead of concatenating strings. And then it's actually giving me an example on how I might consider doing this inside my program. Now, I'm not still fully understanding what's going on here. So let me dig in a little bit deeper and say, well, what is a SQL injection vulnerability? And why is this an issue for my application? So if I go to this, it explains that a SQL injection, what it does and how someone might be able to exfiltrate information from my database. So, okay, I kind of get this a little bit, but how would someone go about doing this? Like, how could this be exploited? Sometimes understanding that can help me determine the best way to implement a solution. And so if we run this here, it shows me how someone could concatenate something to the query, which would then result in extracting information from the database. Very interesting. Okay. So now that I start to understand this, I can say, well, actually, this is pretty interesting. I'd love to learn more about this topic. So we'll ask Copilot, can you tell me where on the internet I can go to learn more about this issue? And it's kind enough to share some links with me on the internet that can help me further understand this. So that's something I can do after this demonstration. Okay, so now that we kind of understand a little bit more about SQL injection, the next question is, well, how do I go fix my code specifically? So if we run this here, it'll give an explanation and make a suggestion on how we should go about fixing this. Okay, so this looks like a suitable fix. So let's drop that in there. So there you go, there's the fix done for us. Okay, so that's good, but I'm now interested and curious, like, are there other kinds of problems that my code could have? So let's have a look in here. So what are some other common security issues with applications like the one that I've written? And here, Copilot lets me know about cross-site scripting type vulnerabilities, cross-site request forgery, broken authentication, insecure direct object references, and insecure communication. Very interesting. Okay, well, I'd want to check for these as well. And given that I'm using CodeQL, let me see if there are any queries for CodeQL that could help me identify these vulnerabilities. So if I run this, it'll come back with some suggestions here, and there we go. It shared some references for existing CodeQL queries that I could use as part of my scanning of my code to identify further potential issues. So the next question is, well, let's confirm, are these in the default query pack, or do I need to add another query pack from CodeQL to be able to run those queries? Excellent. So these are actually in the default pack. So this means that we're actually using them right now already. So I feel a lot better about the program that I've written. There are not so many issues. The other thing we can do is, I recently heard about one of my colleagues talking about something called hard-coded data interpreted as code. And I want to understand a little bit more about that. So if I put this into Copilot, let's ask it, can you explain what this is to me? Oh, very interesting. Okay, so this is basically an issue where application includes data that is intended to be interpreted as code, but is not properly sanitized or validated. And this can allow an attacker to inject malicious code into the application and execute it in the context of the application. And then it proceeds to give me a little example here of what this looks like. So on this basis, I'm going to say, well, is there a query for this in CodeQL? So let's run this here. Excellent. So there is a query for that. So I can just go and include that query as part of my query pack, and away we go. I can also ask it for some best practices around preventing hard-coded data being interpreted as code. And here it actually shows some of the things that I should do inside my program that would ensure that this doesn't happen.